Once again, hello to everybody. I'm Maja Flajsig, and I worked on this project aside of Josip Zanki. Today we're going to show you a presentation, and I'm going to start off by giving you context of our workshops that we did. So just a second. So I will start off by Okay, I'm going to start off by telling you about Group Zemlja, which was actually the main point of our research. Actually, the first point of our research that we developed on workshops in Velebit. So, Group Zemlja was a group of artists, association group of artists, of left-oriented artist who was active between 1929 and 1935. And it was quite an elaborate artistic and socially engaged program because it gathered painters, sculptors, architects, but also it gathered peasants and workers also, with the basic goal of equating life and art. So they performed collectively. They had several exhibitions, and they also exhibited in Barcelona, London, Ljubljana, and Sofia also, and also Belgrade. But what is most important about this collective is that it really worked in collective, which had different aims, which were presented in their manifesto that I'm going to show you later on. So it was a comprehensive social and cultural project that sought to educate the poorest sections of society and at the same time change the profile of audience, which then consisted of bourgeois elite and so on. So ideological dimension is really, really important for this artist group. And they had an idea to shape national artistic expression, and they had an attitude toward contemporary trends in European art. And also, this group had a crucial role for creating Croatian night art complex. So here is the manifesto, which was adapted on February 25 of 1929. It was written by president of Group Zemlja, whose name was Drago Ibler. He was architect. And also, aside of him, there was Krsto Hegedušić, which I'm going to tell you more about later on, who was actually the visionary driving spirit of the Association Zemlja. So you can see in this manifesto, actually, it represents quite clearly what were the goals and what were desires of this artist group, how to act and how to react. So as you can see, one should live the life of one's time. One should create in the spirit of one's times. Modern life is imbued with social ideas and collective issues are dominant. The artist cannot abduct the desires of the new society and stand outside of the collective, because art is an expression of seeing the world, because art and life are one. So when we talk about their art, first we can talk. I'm going to talk about their about painters. So they were it was figurative expression that wanted to create a distinctive artistic expression, which was based on Croatian folk simplicity, but also on European tradition of Peter Bruegel and Bosch, and also of some contemporary trends such as Georg Gross and Otto Dix. Also, it is important to say that Group Association Zemlja organized one exhibition of Georg Gross during their activities. This was, you can see here that not also, you can see that these tendencies towards caricature and grotesque, but also to solving flatly space and emphasizing drawing. But also there is this theme, which is socially engaged theme. It's called requisition, as you can see. And actually it tells the story of peasant life which was not so ideal, and it actually tackles problems of everyday life. Aside of that, their paintings were a deviation from the civic ideal of beauty, which was growing in 20th century, and it was actually a crucial programmatic principle to involve such themes and also such style, as you can see here. There's also one other painting here of Krsto Hegedušić where you can even more clearly see how they treated motifs, how they treated the surface, a rudimentary display of content, the denial of perspective, and so on. Also, here is one other painting by Marian Detoni, one of the members of the group, and it is said that this one is the most real presentation of the life, and one of the best actually paintings of the group, which represents their beliefs. Also, there's another painting. It's called Bas by Kamila Rožička, and also it is mostly about peasant life, about hardworking life of peasants and of workers, but also architecture. So as the group gathered a lot of artists from different art, from architecture, from urbanism, from painting, sculpture, and so on. There was Drago Ibler that I already told you about. Here is his project for rental residential commercial building. So what is important to emphasize is that architects advocated the rationalization and social standardization of space in the manner of international style. Because it was the interwar period, architecture and urbanism became tools for reshaping the whole society, because what happened in that time, proletariat came to the city, and city had to be improvised for the new needs of people who lived there, who lived mostly on the outskirts of the city. So architects made projects which were actually about this problem of proletariat, of new people coming to city, and of the problem of where to put them, where will these workers live. So, and this is all actually about this notion that art is life, and art should be embedded in every particular segment of life. So this is also one example. This is Lace, called Village by Branka Hegedušić, wife of Krsto Hegedušić. It is a very, very elaborate work. And also a reason why I'm showing you is because it also emphasizes this idea of art in every possible aspect of life, such as everyday life, such as making embroidery and lace, and also using techniques from that were maybe forgotten, that were maybe not so, that were not a part of this bourgeois style. And also a big part of Zemlja's reflection on art was involvement into naive painting. Actually, Krsto Hegedušić is thanks to him, naive art developed, because he went to Hlebina village, and then there he educated peasants on how to paint. This is one painting by Ivan Generalić. But what is even more important, that he educated these peasants, is because he actually engaged them into their exhibitions. So they exhibited a side of architects, a side of other aside of other artists that were academically educated and so on. This is also one other sculptor, Petar Smajić. He's also a naive sculptor, and his sculpture called Mother and Daughter. As I already said, Zemlja Association lasted from 1929 until 1935, and the split came actually after Miroslav Krleža wrote a preface to this Podravina motifs, Podravski motivi, in 1933, which was published then, because they were although they implied ideological and formal unity, in the end they were all heterogeneous group of individuals whose group activities were effectively interrupted by police ban, but also which was involved with this Podravski motif, Podravina motifs, was the split, which was made because some of the artists were okay with what Krsto Hegedušić wrote in Podravina motifs about social problems, which they advocated, but then again other artists were debating as to whether technical skills were most important thing, or was it, as I already said, pointing out social problems. So I will end this presentation with this, where you can already see how ideology and art is connected, and how it can make an artist a main motifs of some artist association, but also how it can end it. Thank you. And now Josip Zanki will continue with his lecture.
So hi everybody. So let me continue, and first I'm going to speak about the political activism. Why this is important? Because on 1937, Krsto Hegedušić visited a world exhibition in Paris, and he was observing the German pavilion, Reich pavilion, because at that time it was a Third Reich pavilion, and on the other side, contrary, there was a pavilion created by Soviet Union. And after that, Hegedušić concludes that the Soviet art and the Reich art is almost the same, that there is a big similarity, and this was his end in a way with the political activism, which is a part of art, and like art which is a political activism. Why this is important? Because this period before the beginning of the Second World War is the time when we can see the rise of two different ideologies. First is the rise of Soviet Union with the communist ideology, and second is the rise of the Nazi ideology. And before the beginning of the Second World War, also German Jewish philosopher Walter Benjamin was killed. And if we quote the end of his essay, Artwork in the Age of the Technical Reproduction. So if we quote the end, Benjamin stated that in the future we will witness aestheticization of politics and politicization of art. So what happened after his death? I mean, this was written in 1936. in the Reich ideology and in the Reich politics, in the Nazi iconography, obviously it was what Benjamin noticed, it was a aestheticization of politics, which was present completely in symbology of Nazism. And on the other side, through the socialist realism, we witness the politicization of art. So aestheticization and politicization. After the Second World War, remember, especially in the 50s, during the McCarthy era in the United States, again, we have the concept of politicization of art on both sides. In Soviet Union and the country of the Warsaw Contract Bloc, we have a socialist realism as a dominant. And in United States, during the 50s, three movement of art, or let's say three branch of art, was created using this idea of individualism and political freedom. But this idea was used contrary to the idea of the ideological art of the Soviet art. So these three branches of art is the abstract art, conceptual art, and the pop art. I will quote here Greenberg, who wrote in his famous essay, Avant-Garde and Kitsch, that the avant-garde art still need a bourgeois society because it's money. It's a question about the market, it's a question about the money. So let me be very clear. The abstract art, conceptual art, and pop art, in a way, I will quote here my colleague from Academy of Fine Art, Leonida Kovac, was created as opposition to the idea of the socialist art, idea of socialist realism. Okay, I will show you few slides now, just to introduce you what can be political art now, especially after the 1989, after the, how Fukuyama said, end of the history, after the end of the bipolar world. Because the bipolar world, which was on one side, as Winston Churchill said, the side behind the curtain, and the other side, like a liberal West world and the autocratic East world, ended with the end of Berlin Wall. And we're gonna see what can be a position after, what can be the position of political activism. And I'm gonna give the point why a Hegedušić example from the 30s can still be important now. What we can benefit from this example, what we can benefit from this experience. Okay. So let me go to the beginning with the first slide. So this is the Alte Messe in Leipzig, the old market place. And this M is the logo of Messe, logo of market, big fair during the socialist time. So this is interesting because you see how in socialism, you can see this corporative idea of branding, of PR, which was not opposite to the West, but it was kind of recycling the Western idea. This is from Istria. You see this Tito graffiti on the hill from like memories of the old time. Here we have a Che Guevara in Rijeka. And this is maybe the interesting thing, because before I switch to the end of the bipolar world, before I switch to the end of Soviet Union and falling of Berlin Wall, just to tell you this story, when Che Guevara visited Rijeka and Yugoslavia, normally he visited at that time developed socialist country. And then he reported to Fidel Castro. He wrote him a letter that the growing of socialism in Yugoslavia is going good, but he's worried about two things. He said to Fidel Castro, I saw a lot of fat people and I saw a lot of happy people. And he said, this is not good for idea of socialism because people have to sacrifice for socialism. Just very interesting, this idea of sacrificing and generally what socialism was. Okay, so this is the key thing which I want to show you. So after the end of the bipolar world, in one moment, we have the creation of the completely of the new political configuration in Europe and in the world. You know, this is the world. This is a artwork by Krsto and Jean-Claude. It is a famous package or a covering of Bundestag in Berlin, which was created 1995. Why this work is important? It's important because of many levels. So first I'm going to tell you a few historical levels, and then I'm going to explain why this work is the point. So the Bundestag, as you know, was first was burned organized by Nazi, and this was the beginning of the Nazi terror. Then when the city was liberated, it was conquered by Russian soldier and destroyed. And after, near this place was the Berlin Wall, was the border between East and West Berlin. So a lot of people were killed. And this is the place also where I think it was Carter delivered his speech from the other side of the wall with the famous quote, remove this wall. So a lot of people die also on this position. And when Germany get unified, 1990, the idea was to remove again the capital city from Bonn, which was West Germany, and East Berlin, which was in the East Germany, to remove the capital and to reconstruct this destroyed building of Bundestag. So what they decide, they invite Krsto and Jean-Claude to create this artwork, but this artwork is not only artwork, it's a symbolical act. Why it's a symbolical act? Because with this artwork is created as a manifesto, as a symbolical work of the end of the bipolar world. So they said the German history before the wall fall, it's finished. The Europe history before it's finished before this bipolar world. We cover this building, and after this, it's the beginning of the new history. So what happened after? British architect Norman Foster created his famous dome. Building was reconstructed. The German parliament moved to the building after this site-specific of Krsto and Jean-Claude. What I wanted to point out that politics and art can be together in a kind of symbolical act and can be together in real political action. So my opinion is this work is not only dealing with the cultural memory, with the memory of oblivion, with the history of Europe, with the history of the ideology, but also it's the dealing with the aesthetization of politics. Let me go back to the Benjamin, and politicization of art. Okay, let me go back. So after 1995, after this installation, a lot of political change in Europe happened in the world. I will not repeat you now because I'm not dealing with daily politics and what happened. But the fact is that again, we don't have a unipolar world. We don't have bipolar world like a West and the East. Now we have a multipolar world with a different power like a states, United Europe, China, Russian Federation, and the other country. So also what we have now with the COVID pandemic and the political situation generally after Brexit, before American election, we are questioning what can be a political position, what can be activism and art. So let me go back to Hegedušić experiment. So what was the most important one Group Zemlja done? They went to the village, Klebine, and they were teaching peasants to survive with art. Not with art, they were teaching them to survive with the new competencies. So it was just the competencies. For them, art was a tool of surviving. Tool of surviving. What later happened with naive art, it's not our problem. Become commercial and then die, and it's another story. But this idea to use art as a tool of surviving in a certain community, it's for me only possible form of activist art. Only possible form of activist art to do something in community. To do something in community and to change, to create some kind of change in community. It's not only the statement, for example, as Piotr Pawlenski done, it's not only to burn the door of ex-KGB in Moscow. It's a statement, but it's not dealing with the change in community. It's more an act, it's a symbolical act, it will be in collective memory, but then at the example of Piotr Pawlenski, first he was in the prison by Putin, judged by Putin administration, and later he had to immigrate to France. So this is one way, like let's say, a rebellion or a personal act, but the other example is to do the change in community, to work in the community, and to use artists as a tool. Especially after this 1995 and this symbolical act of Krsto, where he mixed both idea of aestheticization of politics, because the covering of Bundestag was a politic, and politicization of art, because it was also politicization of art normally, because it's not the same to do the installation, site-specific installation in Grand Canyon, or to cover Pont Neuf in Paris, and to cover a building as Bundestag in Germany. So this will be a finish of what I want to tell you. I will not tell now some example from Croatia. I just want to point out that this story about Zemia and this story about activism in village was a kind of starting point for us in this project. And this project have a two branch. One was in Klebine, the village where Hegedušić was, and another branch was in Velebit, where we organized these two workshops. And about workshop we're gonna speak after in another conference. So please, now we are open for your question, and be free to ask anything. So.
Kako ste svi?
Please English.
How are you, everybody?
Hello.
Good, good, good.
So are we supposed to ask you questions, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand that part. I thought.
No, because tomorrow on YouTube channel will be for the public. But now this is what we are recording. So, and what will be published tomorrow.
Okay. I have some problems hearing you, Professor, when you speak next to Maja. when you spoke earlier, I heard you really good, but now I don't really hear you. So could you repeat, please, what you said?
No, I just said that. Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
I just repeat that this is recording now, and tomorrow we're gonna publish it on YouTube channel, and there will be a question of the public. And now it's your turn to ask the question about this subject to start the conversation. Okay?
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't have like a lot of questions because I'm informed well about this topic because we already like went through it all. But I think it's really interesting that what you were talking about, how it's not the same of a statement, for example, to cover the whole building or to burn the doors of KGB library, ex-KGB library. I thought that was really interesting, and I think that the work of Group Zemlja was also pretty like ahead of its time, because to use art as a tool to earn money, I think that idea is pretty complex, because today when there's a question about money in art, I think people don't talk about it like that, especially here in university. We don't really know how to like value our art, or how to sell it, or how to even promote it. And I think that Group Zemlja had a really clear vision of how you promote and present your art, and I think that we kind of miss that in today's time.
Yeah, but also I think there is this problem. But can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, there is this problem, but also I think the notion of working in collective is lost today because of this constant need to be like individual and to be one ahead of another. So it is always like individualization today, as I see it in art and in everyday life. Actually, people do not work together as they did before, and as Zemlja actually proclaimed it, like their vision of working together from different disciplines. So yes, I would that's what I wanted to say aside of this financial part, because it's also a result of this constant need for finances, of precarity in society, that we go apart from each other, and there is no more of this collective feeling, because everybody needs to think of their own life, of how to earn money, and so on. So yeah,
It's almost like earning money from your artwork is a taboo in today's time. I don't know, I don't hear people talking about it very often. I know that for example in my university, I mean in our university, people don't really talk about it. Like even colleagues don't speak about it. It's like it's something that you shouldn't do, or I don't know. But for Group Zemlja, it was really for those people, it was really, you know, you have something to do, you have your work, you earn money from it. It's that concept of earning money and doing a job that's, I think, similar to like any other job, for example. But in today's time, when we are talking about art, it's almost like it's not accepted as a job. It's not accepted as a it's something clear. You know, people really don't see art as a way of making a living, or as a way of you know, even be just stable. financially. So I think that's also a problem that we could address, which Group Zemlja had kind of started to working on, because today I feel that a lot of people want some kind of security, and a lot of people are actually afraid to just do their artwork, you know, to earn for a living. So they have to do other kind of jobs that they don't really like. So maybe that's the problem of you know, not what Maja was talking about, that collectives are not existing, or maybe there are some smaller ones that you don't really hear of or hear about, but maybe that's a way of you know, thinking.
Maybe I'm gonna explain briefly. I mean, there is a two aspect. There is a romantic notion of art, where in this romantic notion, artists have to be a poor, idealistic, working for only for ideal. Another notion is completely commodification of art, where art is a part of market, there is a gallerist, there is an agent, there is a showroom, and the other thing. What I'm speaking about middle, because idea of Zemlja was a middle idea, to use art as a tool to survive. Not the commodification, not the idealistic view of the artist. I'm clear now, and I think this is the only solution, because commodification also, it's not good, and also this idealistic approach, like my art, I want to be free, I want to create my art, it's not important that I don't make money with this, I'm gonna do the other stuff, like I'm gonna be a designer, or I'm gonna work in the restaurant. This is also not the correct approach. The only correct is to use the art as a tool to survive. Okay, other question?
I think this will be better if it's a conversation, not actually a Q&A, because I think we have a lot to say about all the things we mentioned, but more in a conversation form.
Yes, I would like to maybe add on the things that you said about the middle, like a middle form of thinking. For example, people often, you know, for example, I did some, let's say, street art recently, but it was not a street art because it was actually commissioned, and people, just regular people, everyday people, were passing by, and they were all really enjoying it and liking it, but they were not really willing. Like, they would ask, would you do something like that for me? But they would not pay me for that, because they automatically think that I like to do that because I'm an artist. But it's also a job to me, because I have to earn money to live in this kind of society. So I think the problem is that general public is not educated, not just artists, but maybe people generally don't know how to view our artists in society context. For example, if you pay someone to, you know, paint your walls, that's okay. But if you pay someone to, you know, put a pretty picture or painting on your wall, that's a whole different story, because that person enjoys it. So I think that that middle part, or how I don't know exactly how you said it, Professor, but the position in which you can do something that you actually like and earn from it, that's the point that you want to reach. That if you are not willing to work something else or do some other kind of job. So
okay, I think we have to switch to another aspect maybe of this this project. Later on, we're gonna, in another Zoom, we're gonna speak about the workshops. But let me finish this. I mean, when I was speaking about the middle way, or about using the art as a tool, I'm speaking also about the possibility how art really can change the society. This is really important because especially today, when we have completely different way of employment, when we have a self-employment, when we have a world of spectacle, the position of artists is different. And we are dealing with another subject, and we are dealing with another change. And presentation of art is different, everything is different. So in that point of view, I think it's important to find the exit in this. Okay, so maybe if somebody have the question about the other aspect, about the Zemlja, about some political idea, about ideology, about their activism, other things, maybe the history of art, activist art in socialist Yugoslavia, and other things.
Or maybe a comment.
Or maybe a comment, yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've been speaking a lot. Maybe. Okay.
Just wondering, did Che Guevara meet with any of the Zemia group when he came to Reykjavik or Rijeka?
What? Sorry, can you repeat the question? About Che
Did
Guevara?
Che Guevara meet with any of the artist group Zemia?
No. I mean, at that time, Che Guevara. No, Che Guevara visited Yugoslavia to be informed about the communism. You know how the communism is developed. So he visited Rijeka more as a harbor city and to see how it's developed. I mean, that's interesting. People don't understand that in Yugoslavia, for example, we didn't have a socialist realism, but still art world was very ideological. So, for example, the Association of Fine Artists, where I am vice president, during the communist time in Association of Fine Artists, there was a communist board also inside, which was controlling. Okay, there was in Yugoslavia, there was a freedom of expression. So you could do abstract painting, you could do conceptual art, but the ideology was everywhere. So there was like a board which controlled you. So I mean, in general, the visit of Che Guevara was more about the ideological nature. You know, according to the socialist philosophy, and according to communist philosophy, their organization of society, the concept of organization of society was based on the idea of base, and the base was generally the industrial production, everything who product. So there was a base, they call it base, and then there was an upgrade, and the culture was upgrade, something which was not a production. See how it's funny, because today in creative industry and this post-industrial world, culture is the base, because culture in Europe is the only production, because we don't have industrial production anymore. So we have a complete switch from this socialist idea, because for them the base was originally the industrial production, and culture and art was only an upgrade.
So within the time of Zemia, where they provide, actually they were before the war. So did the group continue after the war in terms of its effect in the mountain regions, and where the people who are working with these new tools of art and skills of art, were they brought into the realm of the kind of codified state sanctioned artists?
So Group Zemlja stopped their work as a collective in 1935 because of their because also country intervened and they were not politically suitable and so on. But if I understood your question correctly, I mean artists continued on to develop their poetics and their aesthetics. with their experience of being in Group Zemlja, Krsto Hegedušić especially. And what is also an important part of Krsto Hegedušić, like this educational line, is that he also started master workshop for students of academy. I mean, not for students, but for people who finished Academy of Fine Arts.
Kind of postgraduate.
Like a postgraduate study, yeah. I don't know if I answered your question specifically.
No, I'm more interested in this idea that they brought art out into the country, into the domain outside of standard sort of art practices or art practitioners, and that there was a reciprocal sharing of skills, and people were skilled up in this kind of idea of like utilizing art as a means to survive, as an extra facility within your range of facilities that you can use to get along in life, and whether that spread beyond that time frame, and if it did it create a kind of a proliferation of like sort of naive or local artists operating outside of the standard sort of conditions of the art society. I don't know, like I don't know what sort of market there was within kind of Eastern Bloc Yugoslavia, but what I understood was that during the Yugoslavian time there was payments made to artists in order to allow them to do their work and to support them. So I'm wondering whether the artists that were newly created were also supported by the state, or were they just left to their own devices, and in that regard, whether they were left to make their livelihoods through their pursuing of their own art, their new art practice.
Thank you, Mark, on this complex question. I'm gonna answer you. I mean, this is very, very interesting question, because what Hegedušić and Zemlja done in the 30s with the peasants, teaching them a skill, how to survive, was a unique experiment. And my answer you that Hegedušić, that he had a really important position in university, where he was a leader of this postgraduate study, and Marina Abramović was his student, and he influenced a lot of important artists in socialist Yugoslavia. But let me go back to your question. You asked if this kind of work continue in Yugoslavia. It's continue in completely organized political and ideological way everywhere. I will give you example. In each factory during the socialist time in Croatia, you had a cultural activities. Cultural activities, for example, that the workers could be organized in like a folk group, or could be organized like amateur painter, or even they could be organized as somebody who is dealing with creating of the sculpture. The most interesting example is from the city of Sisak, where there was a steel work. And in this steel work, there was a sculpture symposium, and the workers from the steelwork, they were working together with the contemporary sculpture and contemporary very famous artists like Kožarić and many other famous, and they were doing like a kind of not only technical job, but the creative job together with the artists. So what I wanted to point out, that this idea of Zemlja, teaching a peasant to survive, continue in socialist Yugoslavia, but as a part of dominant ideology. So you couldn't escape it. And sometimes it was funny because some workers, they didn't like cultural activities. They didn't like art. They hate, because I grew up in socialism. I know it very well. They hated it, but it was completely directed. So all the worker time was organized. So as I point, there was a base, the production, and there was the upgrade. And the upgrade was the part of this ideological pyramid. And some result, like for example, steel work from Sisak was excellent. And some other result, and there was some also aspect which was completely, you know, it was like Monty Python. It was completely out of any sense. But what I wanted to point out, that this rebellion of Zemlja in socialist Yugoslavia became a mainstream, but completely in the wrong direction, without the free will. And another part of your question, yes, during the socialism, all cultural workers and artists, they had a social security. You could get a studio for zero. There was a state, the state or the city bought your artwork, commission your artwork, but it was not like in Soviet Union, because in Soviet Union, immediately you got the job. In Yugoslavia was a little bit different. You could be a freelance artist and then the state support you, but you were not chained as in Soviet Union. It was a little bit different, but the ideological control was almost the same.
And also, I would just like to point out that the School of Naive Art afterwards continued. So there were many generations of naive artists in Hlebina, and still today they are living naive artists, and it's kind of a tradition over there to like that. I would say that almost every family has one painter in this little small village of Hlebina, and from other villages also. So it is still a kind of financial needs that are I mean, it's good that they can paint and that there's this tradition, because people still buy it. They still buy naive art. So aside from their works as I don't know, as peasants as they are, as like to have some fruits and vegetables to sell, they also paint. So they have also this financial support from this knowledge that is actually like from generations and generation, from knee to knee, given to each other through families and through others. Okay.
So any other question? Thank you, Mark. This was very good question. Brilliant.
Question or comment?
A comment, and we will go, now we are almost 1 hour. We go soon to the end, and then we have another meeting at 5. So any other comments?
No? Okay, then thank you for participating. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Thank you for your attention, and we'll see each other in
5 o'clock.
In 5 o'clock.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.